when the owl that scared the mouse fluffed his feathers and sat still, and the night around was chill on the door of yonder house. Someone knocked, and the hand of the door unlocked. I've worked in tech for 10 years now. Before that, I worked in retail. It's been the best career move I've ever made. Salary-wise, it's opened up a whole new world for my family and me. Money isn't everything, but it can sure make life easier. When we bought our first house, I finally felt like I was perhaps letting go of my old life. 5 months after moving in, on June 15th, I remember because it was my birthday, we had our first experience. Everyone had gone to bed and I had stayed up to watch some TV. Suddenly I hear 3 pretty loud knocks on the door. It's around midnight and our nearest neighbour is about 2 miles away, so immediately I'm curious. I remember getting up and walking to the door. We have 2 side windows at the front door and I took a look outside but couldn't see anyone. Slowly I turned the lock on the door and just opened it slightly and kept my foot firmly behind it in case it's an intruder. No one there. It's a pretty still, warm night. I remember the wind on my face. It was practically the same temperature as inside. I opened the door a little bit more and I peeped my head around the corner, just enough to see if someone is there, and no one there. I definitely heard 3 knocks that night. I closed the door, blocked it, turned off the TV and the lights in the living room, and I stood in the darkness just out of view of the side windows at the door for a few moments. I waited to see if I could see any movement or if anyone approached the door again. This time I didn't want them to see me. The moon that night did a great job of lighting up the yard, so I had a good view. A few minutes passed, I began to feel pretty stupid. Maybe the sound came from the TV and it echoed. I gave it another minute and then I jumped right out of my skin. It was loud, it had force to it, it echoed. At that point I think autopilot took over. What did they call it? Fight or flight. Surprisingly, I went straight to the door and opened it without hesitation. In hindsight, that was pretty stupid. It could have been some maniac. Again, there was nobody there. I was a bit braver this time, so I remember searching the front porch and lawn. I even went around the sides of the house. Nobody there. So I go back inside. I lock the door behind me and I wait in the dark again with a good view of the door and the porch. But nothing happened. After a while I set the alarm and went upstairs to bed. I decided not to tell my wife. I didn't want to frighten her. After all, probably is some kids to no good in the nighttime, perhaps? I don't know. At 3 a.m, the house alarm went off. I rushed downstairs, and when I got down, the front door is wide open. A literal chill went up my spine because I knew I locked it before I went to bed. Either someone was inside the house and left, or someone was able to gain entry. We called the police. They came and checked the whole house. Found nothing unusual. Tried to convince us that someone mustn't have secured it correctly, i.e. locked it. One guy even suggested that perhaps someone in the house was sleepwalking. Nobody sleepwalks in our house. I know I locked the door that night. Of course, I ended up telling them about the knocks, but they didn't even respond to it, just brushed it off. We ended up changing the locks, the alarm code, and tried to forget about the whole thing. About 5 weeks passed. I was cutting the lawn one day and I saw a car approaching. An older man got out of his truck and came over, hand outstretched, big smile on his face. He introduced himself as a neighbour and welcomed me and the family to the area. Talked for a few minutes. He seemed like a really nice guy. Tells us a little history of the area, where the best place to eat is, and a few spots we hadn't ventured to yet. I should have known something was up when he asked if anything strange had happened. It's a weird question to ask. I considered saying no, but then this is a small community, so of course one of the policemen knows him and has told him that they had been called out here to the new neighbours. So I decided to tell him about the knocks at the door with nobody there, and how I had found our locked front door open at 3 a.m. one night. As I'm relaying the encounter, I notice his face change. His mouth kind of opened slightly and his breathing definitely changed. And then he said, "I've never seen her myself, but I know the last owners, the Morrisons, did." I said, "Her?" And he just replied saying, "Great to meet you guys," shook my hand hard and walked away with his hand waving in the air. Me and my wife actually laughed about it that afternoon. It was such a messed up encounter. So many questions. 3 days after that, we were woken up by knocking at the front door again. It was about 3 a.m. We actually both went downstairs. The knocking was loud, like fast, and it was like urgent, you know. And it continued until we got to the door. I could see a woman outside this time from the side windows. And I remember my wife saying, "Oh shit, is she okay?" She kind of had a better view. She saw her too. This woman, from what we could see, she looked afraid and she had a small cut on her forehead. We kind of hurried to open the door because maybe she had an accident or something. But when we opened the door, there was nobody there. She was gone. We walked all around the porch that night. Both went around the sides of the house. There was no one there. My wife is pretty spiritual. She immediately says it's a ghost and tells me that she is wanting to contact the Morrisons to see if they had any similar encounters. The next day, my wife does as she said she would and calls the Morrisons. We had them on loudspeaker. The husband answered, and he denied anything supernatural ever happened to them. This conversation is pretty short, but my wife didn't buy it. I didn't buy it either, to be honest. About 2 days later, his wife called, and she admitted that they had experienced some strange things over the years and agreed to actually call over to the house. She came by and told of how they had experienced knocking on the front door at night, and how she had also found the front door open on multiple occasions. But she said that she had seen a woman outside during the day and at night, and said she would disappear whenever she got closer to her. Then she kind of apologised to us that she hadn't told us sooner, but didn't want us to think that she was crazy and not go ahead with the sale of the house. She kind of ended by saying that they had never been harmed and that it was just unexplainable, and tried to make light of it by saying she was glad someone else had seen her. Personally, I was terrified, but kind of held it together inside. I think my mind can't process things like this. My wife, she went into full-on cleanse mode. She saged the porch, the whole house, even the driveway. A few months passed, nothing unusual happened. It was pretty quiet. Life was what you call normal, and we decided to have a weekend trip away with the kids. I asked my sister if she would house sit for us. She was more than happy to get away for a weekend. She still lives with our parents. We actually didn't mention about the house being, I guess you would call, haunted. The first night we got away, my phone rings and it's my sister. She's pretty shaken up on the phone. Said that a woman had been in a car accident, but that she was okay except for a cut on her forehead. And she said that she had offered for the woman to come inside, but she just shook her head and stayed out on the porch. My sister, she was pretty weirded out by it all, but said she had called the police and they were on the way. I actually stayed on the phone with her until the police arrived. I could hear them asking where the woman was. And my sister replying saying she wouldn't come inside the house and she should be out here somewhere. Long story short, they never found the woman. We ended up having to cut our trip short because my sister was too freaked out and didn't want to stay there on her own. We told her what we had experienced and the past owners what they had experienced when we got back. She didn't speak to us for a while after that. My wife ended up doing some research to try and find out who this woman was, and we eventually came across a report from 1987 involving a hit and run accident. Some guy was drunk and struck a woman named Melissa. The date was June 15th, which was my birthday and the first time I heard the knocking at the door. And this hit and run happened right at the end of the dirt road leading to our house. We searched for her picture, and when we saw it, we realised it was the same lady that turned up at our front door. I showed the picture to my sister, and she said it was the same woman. It was actually quite sad. We ended up having a ceremony for her. We had a local priest bless the house. He was actually very open to it all. When we told him the story, he offered a private mass for her, which we had. And since then, we haven't had any weird experiences or seen her. Personally, I'm just happy that she's been able to move on. Thank you to Jacob B for sending in his story. This story particularly resonated with me. Just past my family home is a bad bend in the road, and on many occasions we experienced a knock at the door at night from some poor driver who had crashed their car and had a bloodied face. Luckily, no one was ever seriously injured though. I also want to say this week thank you to our first patron, Mariandia Berthold. If you would like to join our Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/scaryaparanormalpodcast, or simply follow the link in this episode's show notes, where you will get weekly bonus episodes and ad-free main episodes. You can also support the show by simply writing a review or rating the podcast within your podcast player. It helps the podcast to grow and get seen. If you have your own paranormal encounter that you would like me to narrate on the show, you can send it to scaryaparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe for future scary episodes. Thanks for listening, and join me next week for another paranormal encounter.
Hey, I'm Paige DeSorbo, and I'm always thinking about underwear.
I'm Hannah Burner, and I'm also thinking about underwear, but I prefer full coverage. I like to call them my granny panties.
Actually, I never think about underwear. That's the magic of Tommy John.
Same. They're so light and so comfy, and if it's not comfortable, I'm not wearing it.
And the bras, soft, supportive, and actually breathable.
Yes, Lord knows the girls need to breathe. Also, I need my PJs to breathe and be buttery soft and stretchy enough for my dramatic tossing and turning at night. That's why I live in my Tommy John pajamas.
Plus, they're so cute because they fit perfectly.
Put yourself on to Tommy John.
Upgrade your drawer with Tommy John. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/comfort. See site for details. Hey, I'm Paige DeSorbo, and I'm always thinking about underwear.
I'm Hannah Burner, and I'm also thinking about underwear, but I prefer full coverage. I like to call them my granny panties.
Actually, I never think about underwear. That's the magic of Tommy John.
Same. They're so light and so comfy, and if it's not comfortable, I'm not wearing it.
And the bras, soft, supportive, and actually breathable.
Yes, Lord knows the girls need to breathe. Also, I need my PJs to breathe and be buttery soft and stretchy enough for my dramatic tossing and turning at night. That's why I live in my Tommy John pajamas.
Plus, they're so cute because they fit perfectly.
Put yourself on to Tommy John.
Upgrade your drawer with Tommy John. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/comfort. See site for details.